Everybody, welcome back to another allcounseling.com webinar. This one is for therapists, and the title is, I'll share my screen in just one second, How to Effectively Market Your Mental Health Practice. And this is going to be a simple framework for therapists. We've been working with therapists for several years now here at All Counseling, but a simple marketing framework. We realize that you all get trained, do all this massive training around the practice side, psychology, and we want you to keep doing that. We want you to keep focusing on that. But you also probably aren't likely taught how to do business and marketing in school. So my name is Cory Miller. I'll share in just a second, but I have Lindsey Miller, co-founder of All Counseling, on the webinar today. We're going to get started rolling. As always, if you have questions, hit the Q&A button or hit the chat. We'll be watching as we go, and we're going to save time for questions. If you have some burning marketing questions or challenges you want help with, that's what this time is here. So we'll spend the first part sharing today's topic on building your marketing foundation for your practice, but we'll have time for you. So cue those questions you got up. You've got a great expert here in Lindsay and I. And so anyway, well, thank you, Lindsay. I'm gonna share my screen, Lindsay, and then I didn't put you first on here, but I should have. Share my screen.
Okay.
So there's the title. I'm Cory, but let's go to Lindsay. And I didn't put any text because Lindsay's very busy running All Counseling and several other businesses. And thank you for making some time for us today. Lindsay, I know you've got to jet out about top of the hour, but let me let you introduce yourself first, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So, my name is Lindsey Miller. I have been a marketing professional for quite a few years now. And I also have the unique perspective of having a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. So, I am the co founder of All Counseling, and I also have a marketing agency called Content Journey. And so, I get to live sort of with one foot in both of the worlds of mental health and marketing. And it's a really fabulous place for me to be in and understand both of those spaces. And so that's what I bring to the table today. And so I love that we get to come on this webinar and also get to continue to be a part of All Counseling and push our mission forward.
Thanks, Lindsay. You're only going to be on for the first part of this, but I can't wait to hear your insights
Yes.
and commentary on what we're going to share today. I'll be on the whole hour, so if you have questions at the end, as Lindsay has to jump off to another engagement, I'm here for you. But thanks, Lindsay. I'm Cory. I've had a 25 plus year career in communications and marketing. I built a software business, grew it, sold it in 2018, I think, and I've dedicated a big part of my professional life the last 3 years helping therapists, specifically at All Counseling, during the pandemic, helping therapists troubleshoot, understand Zoom, do marketing for their practices. Any way I could help, I try to do that because I believe in the mission that All Counseling has of a well world. And I put this, and I could say this for you too, Lindsay. We do our own work.
Yeah.
Had a counselors for much of my life, and proudly share this sentiment I learned from our therapist at All Counseling. I'm doing my own work. So let's launch in today, Lindsay. There's oftentimes, I know you're experiencing your blend to being trained as a therapist, getting your master's degree, doing marketing, online marketing. I think there's a tendency to get overwhelmed by all of the things that you could potentially think you should do, can do. But today, I really wanted to break it down to the most effective, impactful parts of marketing for therapists. And again, we've been working with therapists for several years now. And what do you think about this? I go, keep it simple. Don't overload yourself. Focus the majority of your time on your practice. There's carve out some small time to do some effective things for marketing for your practice. But what's your take on that?
I think, I mean, it is. It's keeping it simple because want to target the people that you want to help and the niche of people that you want to help. And so it is about keeping it simple. You only have a limited amount of time in the day and a limited amount of resources as well. And so by keeping it simple, you're not overwhelming yourself with options either. And you're targeting the right people with the right message. So I think, I mean, this is a very simple slide and a very simple message. And so I think that's exactly right.
Well, I know when you were sharing as you were going through school, you get a great training in the practice of counseling and therapy. But I don't think they spend a lot of time in graduate school talking about business and marketing for therapists, do they?
No, I mean, we're there and we do this work because we want to help people and not because we want to be business owners, most of
But
us.
but
So
the
yeah,
re-
the messaging and the marketing is just about keeping it simple so that we can do what we want to do most, which is help people and do the mental health work.
so the first thing I want you to know, if you're listening this today, now live or recorded later on, keep it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't overcomplicate it. Start with some simple things we're going to give you, and they're going to feel, they could have the opportunity to feel basic because they're profound, they're impactful. Lindsay's work at Content Journey and the other projects she has over and over and over. This is sharing. I hesitate to say cutting edge, Lindsay, but it is because it's simple. Do these things when you have these limited time, resources, money, all that stuff to market your practice. So this framework has two parts. I just wanted to drill it down. If you leave anything today, it's two parts. It's really, really simple, just two parts. But here's the good news. This is your marketing foundation for online and offline. When you're talking to people, you've got your business cards, all those kind of things. This is the center point of your marketing foundation. The good news is, though, is you can grow out of this. So maybe you're past some of these, maybe you have a little gaps, come back to, but you've got to come back to basics and foundation, and you can build on these things. But I'm going to say over and over, Lindsay might say over and over, keep it simple, focus on these things. I think there's this tendency, Lindsay, too, is to go shiny new object syndrome, go do it. Oh, I've got to be there. I've got to be doing this. And I take most of this stuff for part two in particular from your work that you've been doing for 2.5 years through Content Journey about online marketing with your clients that you work with every week. Okay. So part one, we're in 2023 talking about this, Lindsay, but it's just a fact. The website, particularly for therapists, the website should be the hub for everything you do online. What's your first
Right.
take
Your
on that?
website and your all counseling profile. So
Oh,
it's both,
see,
right?
you skipped ahead.
Um,
You skipped ahead. You said part
oh,
two too fast.
sorry. Sorry.
No, no, no.
Yes. So it is. It's a website. People get distracted by all of the other things like you were trying to allude to. But the website is where we control the message. The website is where everything is. And so it really is where all of the pieces should point to. And so yeah, website's the hub for everything.
So I look at it as center of the universe. In fact, the software company I was telling you about was built. We didn't have a phone. We technically had a phone, but we didn't tell everybody we had a phone. Our website was our conduit for everything. And so, but this is one of those things I have to go back to and say, wait, it might feel simple, it might feel simple, it might feel old, but it's true. Website is the hub for everything you do. You can get off and go, oh, I got to do this Instagram thing. I got to do this Facebook thing. I got to be over there. But when you're out there talking and on your business cards and everything else, what's the one thing you're going to have on those and tell people about it? It's your website. It's a brochure that's going to be out there 24/7, 365 days a week, working for you, the hub that you point everything back to. So what I share on here, Lindsay, is a couple of things. Your website link needs to be everywhere you do. It needs to be on your
Mm-hmm.
business card. It needs to be on, if you have frontage or signage or something, it needs to be there too. And part two of this, Lindsay, because I know you and I have seen these too, is like the domain name for that website. This is your brand. This is you have an agency name, but this is the brand that people know to go to find more about what you're doing. And so on the domain
Mm-hmm.
name stuff, I don't know if I want to make sure I capture the fact reasons why this should be your hub. Do you have other thoughts here too?
No, I mean, not more than what we already said, right? Where you control the message, you get to say everything that you want to say. And it's, yeah, I mean, you're in charge of your destiny on your website and you own it. So, no, nothing that I'm not going to repeat. So, yeah.
So I think that own part is really key because when you are on these other social platforms, you don't own those. You lease those, you rent those, and often at a pretty big cost. Not necessarily financial, right? They're free for most of the social things you might do, but you own and control this, like Lindsay said. So make sure your domain name, this is your marketing hub. Make sure your domain name is easily typed in, easily remembered. It's simple. Don't overcomplicate that. I see a lot of um, counseling websites where they'll include LLC or PLLC. Um, Make sure not everybody understands that that's the business entity name. The practice name, you want this to be easily rememberable. Somebody can type it in and go back to. It's not just a marketing hub, by the way. It's also a communications hub for your current clients. Um, and then the next that I should,
Or names that are misspelled creatively. Like that doesn't work well either. Like creative spelling of things. Don't do that. People are going to spell it correctly. They're not going to spell a word wrong because you're using a Z instead of an S because it's cute.
right? There's classic business examples on that, by the way. But yeah, don't be cute
Mhm.
with it. Get it to the point so people understand. Oftentimes, I see a lot of independent therapists using their own name, and I think that's a great practice too. Um,
Mhm.
the next thing past the domain name, so you're going to put it everywhere. You're going to have an easy to remember or easy enough, domain name. And then the next is a website that you control that you can easily go in and change. Now, there's services we can recommend and to help you maintain a website if you have a bigger website presence. But for most therapists we work with at All Counseling, it's a simple website that does some things we're going to share here in the next couple of slides for what you should put on your website, how you can do some really simple things that'll get you found in the search engine results like Google and connected to the profiles. So a website that you can easily change. We personally love WordPress, but there's also some great solutions out there from Wix, Squarespace, Weebly. We can recommend those. The next, I say I added this in. Doesn't necessarily mean website, but it does go back to put your website link everywhere, and that's use a professional email service. A lot of the counselors we work with, and I understand why. Um, so I'm not trying to shame anybody, but use Google, Hotmail, Yahoo, whatever other service. But with your website, you can also pair it with your domain name that is your email address. Google has this side of it. I believe it's called Google Apps. There's other professional services out there, but make sure your website, your email address point together. So when you're emailing clients or other things, it's pointing back to that brand that you built in the website hub that you've done some work on to showcase who you are. Anything else I missed on here that you want to comment on, Lindsay?
Nope. Looking good.
And by the way, as we go, put your questions in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be fielding those as we go. But if there's something we went too fast, didn't clarify, please share that with us. Okay,
Hmm.
now I'm drilling down, Lindsay, to the real the real details and trying to keep it simple enough on the website for the most actionable stuff. So in the United States, you already know this. I learned this real firsthand and was frustrated with, but every state has its own licensure. So, but that
Yeah.
there's a double whammy to this. On your website, you need to make sure you have. So, for instance, Lindsay and I live in Oklahoma City. There's suburbs around Oklahoma City, Edmond. She's actually in Edmond, Oklahoma at the moment. I'm in Northeast Oklahoma City. Whatever that translates for you, one, there's an actual geographic location that Google understands and knows. Oklahoma City, Edmond, those proper city names. But with this, I might also add, second part, making sure you know I'm a therapist in this location is very powerful. We're going to share why that matters later on in the social profiles. But you might live in Dallas, Fort Worth. Okay, that's a huge metropolitan area. You might want to drill down a little bit further to like Arlington or something like that. I know you do a lot of this work, Lindsay, through your business content journey, your agency. But broadly, I say we start with geographic location for a particular reason. But do you want to share any things that you've seen or suggestions applied to that particular window? Because you know a lot more about what's called local search marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people are sometimes, you see whenever they're like some websites, sometimes we'll go like therapy near me and they'll actually put near me on the website, which is so silly because that's really spammy and you don't want to do that because Google just picks that up nowadays. And when I say Google, it's a placeholder for all search engines because those algorithms are just so smart nowadays. They just pick it up. So all we have to do from a website or marketing or therapist, space is simply put our address, our map, and say the city or cities that we're serving on our website in these spaces, and the search engines catch it so that when someone in our location says, I'm looking for a therapist, a couples therapist, the search engine wants to make them happy and give them therapists in their area. So they already know where they're at. They know they're in Dallas. They know they're in New York City. They know they're in Oklahoma City. And so they bring people with websites in those areas to their search results. And so you have to give the search engine those clues so they can give their searchers the information they want. And I'm sure Cory is going to talk about Google My Business and things like that in a later slide. But all of these pieces goes back to keeping it simple. And it sounds probably overwhelming right now, but it really is just about writing this address or this location in a few spots on the website in strategic places, having a Google business profile, and the algorithm really does the rest of the work for you. And you're just telling it like, hey, send people to me because I'm in Oklahoma City helping teenagers, and the rest of that sort of happens on its own. And so that's what I would say. I wouldn't spam it. I would just be authentic. And the sentence that Cory wrote here is really perfect. My name is Cory. I help this group of people with these specific type of issues in this area, and that's really what you're going to say on your about page. You're going to say basically similar on your home page, and having your address and the map and the directions to where you're going is going to be perfect and help the search engine send people to your door.
So this is important for two big reasons. Number one is just sharing with people that hit your site. I serve these people in these cities, towns, location. Get them something to go. Like in Oklahoma City, you have Edmond in the north, but Oklahoma City is one of the biggest landmass cities in the United States. But then you might have a corridor like Northwest Oklahoma City. If you have a lot of people in your office, you don't do as much telehealth. That's really important. And one way to do that too is just look and see where your customers are customers, your clients come from. So for instance, on the west side of Oklahoma City, there's a city called Yukon, okay, and Mustang. If you have clients coming from Yukon, Mustang, those type outline areas, you might include that in those, like your primary, wherever your practice is physically located, and then add in some of those that you do see clients come in, recognizing distance and all that kind of stuff. But primarily you're saying that second part, the licensure for one for in the United States, but second is you're informing the search engines, different places, along with the clients, this is where I do my work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now, second and third here, as we have worked with therapists, and also Lindsay and Betsy are um, trained therapists, that it's really key in from the business mindset that I come in with. You go, who's your customer? So, but I think this is even more helpful. Primarily, if you start with, I'm a therapist, mental health therapist in this regional or geographical location. And then next is, who do you serve? If you're a family and marriage therapist, I serve couples. Um, as drilled down as you can, not necessarily for the search engines, but that knowing that not everybody has been as familiar, Lindsay and I might be, or you are, with the type of work you do, saying, I do these things for these particular people is super, super helpful too on that intro of your website. If you're an independent therapist, simple 2-3 page website but at the home page, you're saying, my name, this little paragraph I put down here, I help these people in this area. I should have said, I'm a mental health therapist. My name is Cory Miller, helping these people, these type of issues. And that all just kind of breaks down to, now we're just talking about that person that lands on your website, helping them understand what you do so you can help them. Oh, I need to contact this person. I need to contact you. So I put this together for you as like a starting point, that if you're just getting your website going, you need to do some changes. That's basic search engine optimization baked in with some things that also helps the humans. Lindsay does this all the time. She's a professional at this. I've heard you numerous times, Lindsay, say we write for the search engines, but really for humans, because Google is getting better and better and better about understanding what the humans want. And if you're a human out there trying to share what you're doing in market. Anything else on this part up here? And then I'm going to get into even more some practicals down here.
Nope, I think you covered it.
Okay. So having looked at, I don't know how many therapist websites I've looked at in the past couple of years, have a contact form, have a place. This is why I say it's maybe 2 or 3 pages if you're just getting started or just kind of want to winnow down and make some really good website marketing choices. A contact form. And here's why. So not everybody knows, if you put your email address, one, you can get spammed. But two, to copy, they're going to have to go over to their email client, paste it. What if they're on mobile, a mobile phone? A simple contact form, name, message title, what the subject of the message is, and a big area to ask questions, and then to push send. All the platforms I've mentioned earlier have these out of the box. They should be simple, easy things to do. But a contact form, I can't stress that enough. You've done the work to put the website out there. You're trying to push people in through all your different platforms that we'll talk about next. Now make it so easy to ask you questions. And again, that goes to your professional email. That's Cory at whatever my practice name is.com, or whatever you've decided on your domain name. Lindsay mentioned this. The second is, and this is more for the humans, but it does have search implications, right, Lindsay? But having your address, like, in a way where they can see it very clearly on your website, because the majority of the therapists we work with, it's still knee to knee, sharing the same air. And so having your address right there, but it also does have implications for the search. But so they map in directions, like Lindsay said a minute ago, where they aren't trying, if you imagine your first time in therapy, trying to find the building and not, getting confused and frustrated. They're already coming in with some problem that you're going to be working with them on. And this is just lowering that bar, making it easier for them to find exactly where you are. If you're in some kind of bigger complex and you're like, okay, you have to come up the second floor, make those directions super simple and clear on your website. You might have your address, and then maybe below is like, here's how you get to the office, Anything on that, Lindsay, that comes to mind, the address map and location side? Okay. And then next, I want to talk about FAQs. Then we're going to get on to part 2, which is social profiles. FAQs. I'll unpack this more, but if you now we're just switching to fully the human side, but this does help with Google and other things. But FAQs, I think most therapists I work with have done it long enough, don't realize what it's like on the other side always. I do that in business. I don't always remember to go through my checkout process and see how things are going. But FAQs, and I'm not saying you just do a wall of text or anything like that, but I'm saying when somebody lands on their website, you're telling them what you do, who you serve, all that, right? Where you're located. But then they come in with fears, worries, and concerns, potentially even objections to making a call, picking up the phone, hitting the email form to contact you. The FAQs, I say this is more a conception of how do we keep lowering those barriers to them contacting you and getting the help they need, help and support they need. It's all the questions you undoubtedly hear in your practice from those prospective clients to the current ones. I'm not talking about the specific ones in the session necessarily, but I'm sure you got all these in your mind. These are the things you hear all the time. They come down to, probably, I'm guessing, money and insurance. How much does it cost? Do you accept my insurance potentially if you're not in private pay yet? Do you do telehealth? And then also, how is it? So many people have not been to therapy at all and don't know how it works. So they have a misconception potentially in their mind. And when I'm talking about FAQs, I'm trying to get at this mindset of think on the other side of the client coming to you for the first time needs to work with someone like you for their particular issues in their life. And what are all those questions they might ask before they ever give you a call? Making that as easy as possible. Is it just going to be me talking the whole time? Whatever those are, I'm sure, Liz, you probably have some of these in mind too. But for me, being on the other side of the sofa, I had all these questions myself. How do I book? How often might I go? Just think about those things. And I'd be willing to bet you get a lot of these questions in your first intake. They're apprehensive. They know they have this big issue they're trying to get some help and support with, but there's probably issues around that you can put on your website to help them feel more comfortable, feel more at ease about getting to the session with you.
Absolutely. And this is going to be my parting thought before I head to my other meeting that I have to get to. But I think that whenever we work through, especially the FAQs, and we use our website because, as mental health professionals, we're so busy in our days and we stay locked and loaded, if you will, for so many hours that the more information that we make available on the website about ourselves, answering questions ahead of time, that our website becomes our best expression of what we are. In business, we would say that our website is our salesperson. And I don't think that feels very comfortable in the mental health space to say that like it's sales, but at the end of the day, it still is. But it helps people feel comfortable with who we are. It helps them have a stronger, better relationship with us, that they're making a good decision or potentially not, to know that maybe they need to would have a better fit with someone else rather than us. And that's okay, right? Because we want them to have a strong relationship with whoever they choose. And so the website and the information that we put there, the FAQs, all of that leads to that ending. And so whenever you take the time to create that or find someone to help you create that, it really is worth the effort on the front end when it leads to stronger, better client relationships on the farther side of that. So thank you for the invitation today, Cory, and for putting this together. I can't wait to see the questions that everyone has and for the next time that we get to do this.
Thanks, Lindsay, for jumping in today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Bye.
Okay, so on these lines, so right here, just this part up here, if you just think about the questions that people probably ask, the common themes that come up in prospective, people are just giving you a call for the first time and seeing if you're a good fit. You've got plenty there to go. Now, the one I usually ask is, Obviously, I get this caveat within therapy that you don't do counseling with your own friends and family. But someone in your life, here's the key question that can help you even flesh this out broader. If someone in your life comes to you and say, I'm struggling with these issues, I need to find a therapist. And let's say for a moment, you can't refer, just for this exercise, you can't refer somebody on to another therapist. Just call this person, okay? Because this is about your marketing, your communications. What 5 things, if you were you held back, you can't refer them to somebody else. You just had to turn them out with some things into the wild to go find the right therapist for them. What like 5 things would you share with them to know about things? And it could go down to modality. It could go down to that. Like if you have some specialty and niche within your therapy practice, it's what if they came with it, presented an issue with you, but you can't help them or can't refer them. What would you tell them for how to find the right fit for them? Now, some of that is you don't need this kind of designation. You need that one or something. But in your mind, as you're doing this, why? Why would you tell them that? That right there, the answer to that is going to be key for something you could put on your website, sharing your social profiles, all of that to help them really understand and find the right fit therapist. Now, I'm not talking about as much as are we going to get along, but hey, when you're looking for a therapist, think about I'm trying to give a good example, but I hope you all kind of sense this. And by the way, if you have comments or questions, post those in the Zoom chat. But I often tell this in business, and I think it applies here in therapists, is what are the 5 things to go out to find the right person for you to help? What things would you ask of them? Then answer them and post that on your website and use those in your social channels because that's really, really good, helpful content that educates and trains people. So all of these things I've said right here is probably 3 to 6 months of content you could put out on your social profiles, on your website, all that in between. And it's right there in your head, probably right today. Okay, so I wanted to give you enough on this website as the hub. Some pretty simple direction. We talked about geography, website as your central, and I gave you some really helpful stuff here, I hope, to help you put some content that just kind of lowers the bar. Okay, part 2. So this 2-part, really simple framework. Part 2 is where people often I see put as part 1. And I go, hold on, but where do they go? What happens if Facebook changes their algorithm? What happens if they're just not on that platform? Then, but this is what's part 2, step 2, profiles and social channels that funnel back to your website where they can contact you, where they see where your office is, how to schedule an appointment. I mean, that's a question back up here. How do I schedule? Is it back and forth? Are you booked out 3 months, 2 weeks? All those kind of things around the appointment. So part 2 is your profiles and social. I hesitated to even put these on this slide. I almost broke them out. But here's some key things to consider regarding these outposts or things in the orbit. Your website's at the center. These things are sit out here and point back to your website so that when somebody's like, I want to work with this person, they can come to your website, interact with you, get their questions answered, and hopefully get in the session and start getting your help and support. Lindsay mentioned this. It was formerly called, they've changed the name, and all these tech companies change their names all the time, but Google My Business is what it's been known as for a long time. This is free. You can get an account right here, a free account. Now, what this is, the Google My Business profile, and I start right here. It's first things first, do this because it's free, but it's also tremendously impactful. Like Lindsay said, therapist near me, plumber near me. This is what Google calls the map pack. So when you do a search, like today, you've probably done this. You just go to Google. Google knows, by the way, I had a security expert tell me that you can take an air-gapped computer, never been on the internet, in other words, do 6 searches, and Google knows who you are. That means they also know where you are. So this map pack, when you're doing any searches, sometimes it'll pop up on mobile and say, can we do your location? You say, okay. That's telling Google for instance, I'm in Oklahoma City. searching for a plumber, for instance, or a therapist. Local geographic based services and therapists right now today mostly fit into that category in a big way. So it's not, Google doesn't want to show Houston therapists. They're getting their index and showing you through what they call that map pack that you are in Oklahoma City near you. You've seen this if you've ever Googled any kind of local service that you might need. This profile helps you get in that for free. Okay. I'm going to come back to this in a minute. So this is, it often gets overlooked, which also means it's a prime opportunity for you. There are companies in the therapeutic space spending millions of dollars a month to be ranked high in the search engine results. And this is a way to stand out. Most independent professionals, specifically in the therapeutic space, don't even leverage this. So go to this link, get your free account. That's your homework for today. If you haven't done this, do this, because that's telling Google, I'm here in this location, geographic location. You're linking back to your website that what does the same. So you're training Google, hey, I'm here. They do the verification by physical mail, so they know you're actually there. And then your website is reflecting the same back to Google, and those are playing into each other, and that's pretty powerful. But this right here, great way to pick up potential new clients that are looking for you, because all of the tech is there, and Google loves this information. The second, because it's free, I think it's free on Psychology Today, but I'm not sure. It is on All Counseling. But get your therapy, get your profile on those therapy profile websites, because they are out there, just like All Counseling, working to help getting prospective clients on their site to see your profile to book a service. But if you follow that whole trend, somebody's out there looking for it. They've got email marketing, they've got content, all these things to try to drive traffic to the website, to then find a therapist profile that goes, I'm Sue Clark, and here's my website address and all the things I just shared you. So go to those free profile sites. All Counseling, do that, please. Because we're working for you to help kind of funnel this back to you, and ultimately your website, ultimately you, so they can sit with you knee to knee or however you practice. So get those on those websites. You need to be there. It's also, these two things right here are indicators to Google that, see, I'm over here, these little orbits, this profile, when they index that with the search engines, the bots, and they're like, oh, Cory, Oklahoma City, this kind of therapist, that link is cross-linking back to your website. Then you've got Google My Business profile over here, all doing the same thing. So what you're trying to tell Google, which is insanely smart and only getting better, that whole phrase I said back here, this is a therapist named Cory helping these people with these issues in this geographic area. You're training the search, Lindsay says all the time, you're training the search engines to know you're there. And this is going to be your leg forward. People are out there looking, searching for therapy. As much as we try to erase and obliterate the stigma, still exists. They're doing these things maybe at night, maybe on their phone, during the day between a meeting. And so when they hit that, you want to be found there, and you want all these indicators, very few. So far, I've just said 3: website, Google My Business, your social profiles on the Psychology Today, All Counseling, all to say, hey, Google, hey, Bing, hey, everybody, this is what I do in here when they're looking for it. Because Google's job is to be the best at giving you the right information. That's their job. They have to be number one at that, to keep the value up for that search, so that you go look for a plumber or whatever else you have. Now, I'm saying this caveat because I think these can be distractions, and we put a lot of weight in these. But if you have time, energy, and think there's a good audience to potentially market to, these 3 can be powerful and the ones I suggest. But I'll give the caveat right here. Where do my clients hang out? You probably hear this anecdotally in session, outside. You just kind of know a lot of people are on Facebook that I particularly serve. Then it might be helpful for you, if you have time, energy, and to go on Facebook and create a Facebook page for your practice. Again, linking back to your website. It has all your information about how to get working with you. I wanted to put this because I think this is an opportunity. LinkedIn. We often too often think about Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that for the social stuff, but LinkedIn too. You'd be shocked. I've done a lot of work in the last couple of years on LinkedIn, and I think also there's potentially a stigma that we're trying to work to obliterate, but that just by being here and present and having a profile is a good thing. Um, if you have that time and energy, by the way, but you could potentially tap into another audience that really needs what you're doing. And if you've done your work in this right here, and you're thinking, oh, executives, I'd like to serve more executives in my practice. Think of what fears, obstacles, concerns, worries they have. And that's great content that you could potentially post later on. Now I'm getting a little bit past our simple framework, but if you've seen one, two, one is website, that's your hub. All these other things I've mentioned just help you maybe get into a new audience and then point back to your website. But the second part of this question I want to mention is, what do you gravitate toward? You may go, I have no interest being on Facebook. You go, but I know a lot of my clients are there. But I'd also say make sure if you do one of this second tier thing, is it's one that you would actually gravitate, you could see yourself using. I see a lot of therapists using Instagram. I think it's a great platform. It kind of some of the noise isn't there. There's still noise in all these platforms. I think LinkedIn could be an opportunity too to reach a working professional audience for you, but also just make sure it makes sense for you. Okay, because I don't want you wasting your time. I want you spending it recharging yourself, renewing yourself, helping your clients in the office, and these just to be impactful and helpful to get more of those people into your practice. Okay, so if you have questions, please hit the chat Q&A, and I'll make sure if anything isn't clear. But Google My Business, do that today if you don't have it. Start that process. It'll take a couple days to get your physical mail verification in to ensure Google wants to know, preserve the accuracy of those results that you're in that location. And then also, if you have some time, make sure your profiles are there. And if they are there, go update them on those therapy profile sites. Okay, now ideas for social channel content. I hope I have said this enough where it's just like locked in and embedded and you don't question it. For the foreseeable future, this is true, will stay true. It's so simple. It's obvious to me. And I think oftentimes can be like, maybe I should make this rocket science, but it's not. A place, I have these. Oh, Counseling has these. Lindsay has these for her business. They're just a way to go. I show up. This is where I can interact with this company, this person, in your case, the therapist. But again, if you look back on this FAQ right here, and you just spend 15 minutes writing down all the questions you commonly get, all the themes, all those stuff, that's your first 3 to 6 months of social content potentially. So if you find yourself saying something a lot, if you're on these, and I would say, I'm going to say this over and over again. If you're going to post anywhere, post right here to a social channel and then go to those Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And the reason why is because if that profile, that Google My Business profile is regularly, I believe Lindsay's current thing is twice a month, real easy. Just post to that profile to show some activity. Here are some ideas for posting on those. Again, take all those FAQs. Do I take insurance? Do I do all that? Those are posts that you could spread out if you wanted, that you could put on some of the Google My Business profile stuff. If you say in your practice, I'm not telling you to at all talk about your actual clients, but if you find yourself saying something quite a bit, that's a quote you could use for a social channel that you could post in Google My Business. I find myself lately sharing this piece of wisdom, quote, whatever it is, because maybe there's a current event. Maybe there's something you're seeing more in your practice. It's a great thing to post to your Google My Business profile and to keep that profile active within the system. Exercise and tools you share quite a bit, unpacking this framework. This is really easy stuff that you're already doing and so good at. Share it. It's likely I hear therapists probably share similar tools with their clients. I'm not saying yours isn't awesome and practical and helpful, but there's a reason why so many therapists do that. But that just because it's ubiquitous in your profession doesn't mean your clients hear that all the time. So if there's a tool, something you share, a piece of wisdom, advice, whatever that is to your clients. My therapist, for instance, talks about values. He's an ACT-based therapist. And I think to myself, I'm not in the profession. I've hired a counselor to work with me. And even though he might think it's everywhere, it's not. The clients aren't. They spend their life in other areas. So think about those when you're sharing posts and content. And what it's doing is helping them see that how you work, what you do, all those things. And it's the why. I'm going to share this tool today. I use it a lot in my practice because, and you answer that. And that's maybe 200 characters, and post that to your social profiles, and particularly Google My Business. And again, I just say this all the time because there is a stigma. We want to obliterate that. We want to create a world, and you're the ones at the front lines of doing that. But unpack what you do over and over. I work with a lot of therapists. I know you are highly, highly trained, and I'm so incredibly grateful for it. But remember, most people don't have that kind of advanced education you do. Most people don't understand what all those words and initials and acronyms and certifications and trainings that you've done mean. I do EMDR. I personally heard that a little bit more in common vernacular, but what does that do for you? How does that help? And I use EMDR, whatever modality you use, because these things, whatever your answer is, that's great social posts to put out there. One, you're talking about a modality, something that Google knows what those are. And then you're sharing the reason why and telling Google and others, I'm the expert at this. I understand this. I use this all the time. And then it's a great opportunity to say, translate that down and connect to the people you're trying to serve. Because I've found this tool, practice, modality helps teenagers with whatever that is. Whatever you hear anecdotally, you're not telling client names, you're abstracting out saying, hey, a lot of teens I talk to suffer from anxiety about whatever it is. I use this tool to help them. Now, again, you're the one trained in psychology and mental health. You're the one licensed, all that. You decide what is appropriate for that. But the concept is, don't assume they know what LFMT or whatever the initials you have behind your thing. Unpack why that matters, because I've had specialized training for couples with this modality tool. And don't even, by the way, I feel like I'm pretty educated, but when I started working with therapies, I was like, modalities, what do you mean? But unpack that. It's an area, it's a specific trained use. You've went to school, you've done these training, you've done it with a bunch of clients to help people with a common issue or problem or struggle. Make sure you do that part of it. Okay. That helps you be more approachable and connect with the people you're trying to help. Now, here's the prescription on part 2 of this. If you only had time, resources, energy for one thing, do it with Google My Business. Have your website going, have your Google My Business profile, your social profiles on Psychology Today, All Counseling Are Out Here, all pointing back to your practice, right? To get them to contact you. If you only had one extra thing to do, post twice a month and take this, what I set up here and the FAQs back here, and that's content for the next 3 to 6 months, especially if you're doing it twice a month. This is the simplest, most impactful way to help keep those things active, to keep training the search engines for those people that are looking for services that you offer to know. If you serve a particular people group, if you serve the LGBTQIA plus community, talk about that. Talk about the common issues. If there's current events that you can relate to it, you could use that as fodder too. But right here is enough for you to say 24 times a year, I promise you, you have these things right today. Probably if you made a list of 24, you started adding all these questions, FAQs, things, throw in current events if you wanted. Those are things that you could put in that Google My Business profile. Okay. So in review, website is your hub. Profiles are the things that sit, the outposts, the planets in the orbit that point back to the website. This right here is where you start and camp out and get just do this minimal thing for a year. Okay. I'm not trying to promise instant results, but I want you to be pleasantly surprised when you're just doing very simple things. Telling Google and your potential prospective customers, clients, who you are through your website. Google My Business sits out here. You've got your profile in psychology today, all counseling, all pointing back to the hub and doing these very simple things twice a month, posting to Google My Business. Good things are going to happen. And then when you have a little bit more time, we can talk about the next strategies you might do to grow out from that. But that's your base today. So with that, I want to leave enough time. And I'm sorry, I was trying to close a little bit earlier so we'd have more time. But if you have questions, I'm here for you. But in the meantime, thank you. Cory at allcounseling.com. If you have a question, you have something, please hit me up. And we love at All Counseling to help people. Our mission is to create a well world. Lindsay and Betsy are passionate about what they do, applying their passions, strengths, experiences to help fellow budding therapists grow their practices, reach more people to create that well world. But if you have any questions, post those in the chat. I'm here for you. This is why All Counseling asked me to come do these, because I'm personally passionate about doing my own work, want the well world. So if you have those, cue those up for me and I'll be here today. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and start the recording, but thank you for being here. We'll be doing more of these right now on Fridays is where we're kind of designated, because we've heard from a lot of therapists. Fridays are a lot of days. If that changes, please let us know at All Counseling. I just got next week's webinar up. I think it's going to be next week. And I forgot off the top of my head what the topic is, but it's all around marketing your practice in simple, affordable, effective ways for you to get you out there seen and do what you do best in our world. And thank you for what you do for our world. Trying to find